Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and let's take a panel and cut it up. So I'm going to use this beautiful panel from Timeless Treasures. It's a nice winter scene. The first thing you need to do is cut off the selvages and square it up. From there, we're going to cut it apart in long strips, going from the selvage to the selvage. But before we do that, we're going to add a border that is attached to the top and the bottom. So we're going to make one large tube. The piece of fabric that you're going to put on the top is also going to be the fabric that you're going to put in between each row. Now I'm going to use a medium fabric that's sort of going to blend in. You could use a very dark fabric or a very light fabric. It's all going to give it a different look, and there's no right or wrong. So start with, I'm going to need a piece of fabric that's going to be 12 inches by whatever your dimensions are for the width of this fabric. And I have 36 inches. So this is 36 inches by 12 inches. I'm going to take one edge and sew it on the top, and take the other edge and sew it onto the bottom. And when that large strip has been sewn on, you have a large tube. So take the panel and fold it in half so that the tube part is up at the top. Match up your edges and make sure that the panel is nice and flat. And at this point, make sure that there's no wrinkles and it's pressed really well. Once you have this laying out flat, you're going to be able to now cut strips. And the strips are going to be what you decide they're going to be. You can cut them in random long pieces, or you can measure this and have them all exactly the same size. For example, this is 36 inches, so I could do 6-inch strips, or I could even do 8 4.5-inch strips. However you want to cut them up is fine. Just make sure that your lines are very straight. You do not want to do a wonky line, do a very straight line. I'm going to do them at 4.5 inches. If the panel is too long to fit the length of the ruler, you can fold the panel again right on top of itself. You just need to make sure that this fold is the same as this fold. You don't want it crooked. You need to have it straight. You can follow the lines on your ruler and make sure the fold is equal on one set of lines. And then make sure this fold is equal on a set of lines. Now you can cut your strips apart. So all the strips are cut apart. But in order for me to keep them in order, I want to mark each strip. So I'm going to actually write numbers 1, 2, 3, and so on right in the seam allowance. So you see, it's just in that seam allowance. Now I want to take these strips and I want to cut them so that I can open them up flat. But I'm only going to cut that top piece that I put on. And I'm going to be able to cut them at random sizes. Take one and cut it right in half. And you don't need a rotary cutter for this. As long as the fabric is together and the edges are meeting, you can take the scissors, put it between the two layers, and just cut it apart. So I've done one piece. Then I can go and randomly do the next. And I'm not going to measure. I just want to randomly choose a size and then cut it. So all of these top blue pieces are now random sizes. And you're going to have the matching at the bottom on the other side. Now these strips have remained the same length, but they are now random. And I still have them in order. The next thing is going to be sewing these strips back together. But before we sew them together, we're going to put 2.5-inch strips in between each row. So whatever length you have, you're going to need to have a 2.5-inch strip that length. And you're going to be able to sew those strips in between each row. And when you do sew the strips together, just make sure you keep them in the proper order. I like to take my seams and I like to press the seams out on those pieces that I put down the center. When you sew a lot of strips together, sometimes the fabric is going to go a little wonky at the top. So if you sew going in one direction with one strip, sew going in the opposite direction. And as you sew going in opposite directions, it will help keep it from warping. Now, the other thing you can do, because we have lots of fabric at the top, you will be able to square it up. The next thing we need to do is add 2 big borders on either side. Because we have all of these rows done, we need to do the outside. You can choose any size you want. You can do the 2.5-inch strip like you did in the center, or you can do a larger strip to match the top and the bottom. I'm going to do a larger strip. And when you put the side borders on, the quilt might actually be wider than it is long. If you want to make it longer, you can just add borders along the top and the bottom. The center is all done and the side borders have been put on. You can leave it here or you can add a border. I'm going to add 1 more border and I'm going to add a nice dark contrast to pull out the dark inside. And you're done. You can add as many borders as you want or as few, and you do not have to have them this big. You can also change the strip size in the center. This is a very, very easy quilt to do with a quilt panel, and your eye still recognizes the picture. I do hope you give this a try, and as always, thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.